In a world constantly shouting for attention, the true mark of confidence is not in how loud you speak, but in how powerfully you stay silent. Imagine having the strength to remain calm, composed, and unmoved, no matter the chaos around you. This isn't indifference, it's deliberate control, a powerful inner strength that only those who truly know themselves can master. Today, we'll uncover the art of nonchalance and how it's the ultimate expression of confidence. Stay with us, because what you're about to learn will change the way you approach every challenge in your life. Let's dive into one of the most important distinctions you'll need to understand on your journey toward true confidence. Nonchalance versus apathy. These two words might seem similar at first, but they are worlds apart. In fact, this subtle difference could be the key to unlocking a level of emotional mastery and power that will transform the way you interact with the world. You see, nonchalance isn't about being indifferent or emotionally detached. That's apathy. Nonchalance is about strategic emotional control. It's the choice to react only when it truly matters. It's not ignoring life's challenges. It's having the strength to respond only when you've fully processed what's at stake. It's a mindset, a deliberate practice of holding your ground, not being swept away by impulsive reactions or outside pressures. Apathy, on the other hand, is what happens when you disconnect from your emotions entirely. It's a defense mechanism, a way to shut yourself off from feeling, thinking, or caring. People who are apathetic no longer believe in the value of feeling. They've shut down their internal world because of the weight of life's disappointments or failures. But nonchalance, it's the exact opposite. It's not about shutting down. It's about mastering what's inside, taking control of your emotions, and choosing not to be ruled by them. Think about it. How often do you see people reacting emotionally? Shouting, getting angry, being upset over the smallest things. Our society rewards those loud emotional reactions. People scream for attention on social media, flex their achievements, or post every fleeting thought that crosses their mind. It's easy to get caught up in that frenzy. The world pushes us to perform, to react on impulse, and to constantly show our emotions to feel validated. But here's the truth. The most powerful people in the room are often the ones who say the least, the ones who control their emotional responses, the ones who choose when to speak and when to stay silent. That's the essence of nonchalance. It's not about avoiding emotions or rejecting the world around you. It's about holding your ground with a calm and unwavering presence. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to react to every external stimulus. You've already conquered yourself. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and emperor. He wasn't indifferent to the world around him. He was deeply aware of it. He saw the struggles, the chaos, the challenges of leadership, yet he never let those external circumstances dictate his state of mind. He practiced nonchalance in the truest sense. He didn't rush to judgment, didn't react impulsively, and didn't let the future disturb him. Instead, he took action with clarity and composure, responding to life's difficulties with calmness and wisdom. The reason this is so powerful is simple. People who don't react emotionally are unpredictable. In a world where everyone is quick to show their hand, to react, to jump to conclusions, a person who holds back, who stays composed, becomes a mystery. And in that mystery, they gain power. No one can control someone they can't figure out. Your silence and strategic composure create a space where others start guessing, questioning, and ultimately respecting your every move. This is where true confidence lies, not in reacting to every challenge, but in having the courage to remain composed, to think before you act, to give yourself time to process before responding. When you master this skill, you are no longer at the mercy of life's ups and downs. Instead, you take control of how you respond to every situation, whether it's a conflict at work, a disagreement with a friend, or a public critique. you are no longer a slave to your emotions. Your response, when it comes, is deliberate, measured, and impactful. It's important to note, though, that nonchalance doesn't mean being emotionally absent or pretending you don't care. That's the danger of confusion with apathy. Nonchalance is about understanding that emotions are powerful, but they're not the boss of you. Emotions are data. They inform you of your needs, desires, and reactions, but they don't need to be acted upon immediately. You can choose to wait, to think, and to respond from a place of reason rather than impulse. For example, let's say you get into a heated argument with someone. Maybe it's a coworker or a loved one. The natural instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to shout back. But instead, nonchalance teaches you to pause. You don't engage with every emotional impulse. You allow yourself the space to think. You ask yourself, what's truly important here? What do I want the outcome to be? And when you do finally speak, your words come from a place of clarity, not reactivity. Now let's talk about the impact of nonchalance in the social media age. Everyone is shouting for attention, posting every detail of their lives for validation. But consider the influencers and public figures who choose to share only when it matters. They release content only when they're ready, not for the sake of keeping up with the crowd. Their silence draws people in, creates curiosity, and earns respect. When they do speak, their words carry weight. This is the power of nonchalance. It's the ability to maintain your composure, to stay centered, and to show restraint when the world wants you to act impulsively. You don't let the constant pressure to perform affect you. Instead, you master your reactions and maintain your inner strength. As we continue to explore this idea, we'll dive deeper into the art of hiding emotions and using silence as a powerful tool. Stay tuned, because understanding how to strategically control your emotions and reactions is going to elevate your life in ways you can't yet imagine. Now that we've explored the distinction between nonchalance and apathy, let's delve into one of the most powerful tools in the world of confidence: the power of silence. This is not just about keeping your mouth shut. This is about using silence as a deliberate strategy, a weapon that can shift the dynamics of any conversation, decision, or interaction. We live in a world that is constantly noisy. Everyone is shouting to be heard, sharing their opinions, flaunting their achievements, and trying to make themselves visible. Social media, news outlets, and even everyday conversations demand constant input from us. The pressure to react immediately, to express every thought, to validate every feeling is overwhelming. And in the midst of all this noise, one of the most powerful things you can do is stay silent. But here's the thing. Silence is not weakness. It's not about avoiding communication or being passive. Silence is an act of control. It's a conscious choice to remain unmoved by the external chaos, to protect your energy, and to hold your power until the moment is right. True silence comes from a place of inner strength. It shows the world that you are not desperate for attention, approval, or validation. You've already conquered yourself and your emotions. Silence, when used strategically, can speak louder than any words ever could. Let me explain how silence works in action. Have you ever noticed how some people command the room without uttering a single word? They walk in and the entire atmosphere shifts. There's something magnetic about their presence. It's because they know when to speak and when to remain silent. They don't fill the air with unnecessary chatter. They know that silence holds weight. It forces others to think, to reflect, to listen more carefully. This is the essence of composure. Think of someone like Roger Federer, the legendary tennis player. In moments of extreme pressure, like during the unforgettable 2019 Wimbledon final, Federer didn't lose his composure. He didn't smash his racket or yell at the crowd. Instead, after an excruciating loss, he walked off the court with a slight smile, a gesture that spoke volumes. In that silence, he commanded respect. His calmness in the face of adversity is the perfect example of how silence can create a powerful presence. It's not about repressing emotion, it's about having the discipline to control how and when to express it. Silence in this sense doesn't just make you appear strong, it gives you the advantage. When you refuse to react immediately, you leave others to guess. You make them wonder, question, and sometimes reveal more than they intended. And when others are unsure of your next move, that's when you can step in with precision. This is the psychological power of silence. It forces people into a state of uncertainty, which ultimately gives you control. This brings us to a core principle of Stoic philosophy. The idea that you control your reactions, not the world around you. The Stoics believed that true power lies in our ability to remain unshaken, regardless of external circumstances. By mastering silence, you are practicing this Stoic ideal. You aren't moved by external noise, you're in control of how you respond, and that control gives you immense strength. Let's take a look at Julius Caesar as another example. Before making one of the most crucial decisions of his life, the decision to cross the Rubicon, Caesar sat in silence, reflecting, calculating, and strategizing. He didn't rush. He didn't speak impulsively. His silence was the calm before the storm, the moment of clarity before making a life-altering choice. And when he finally spoke, he did so with intention, delivering one of the most impactful statements in history. The die is cast. His silence created an aura of mystery, and when he acted, it was decisive, leaving no room for doubt. This is the power of strategic silence. It makes your words and actions more meaningful when they do come. But silence isn't just about withholding your words. It's also about withholding your emotions. In a world where people are constantly looking for emotional reactions, the one who remains unmoved gains power. In any heated argument, for example, how many times have you seen someone lose control, shout, or become defensive? And how often does that escalate things? Now imagine you choose to stay silent. You don't react emotionally. You allow the situation to breathe, to settle, and in that silence you force the other person to reflect on their own words. You control the emotional space, and that's where real power resides. In fact, silence can be a weapon of psychological warfare. Think about the tactic of non-reaction in a conversation or negotiation. When someone tries to provoke you, if you react, you give them the power. But if you remain silent, you shift the balance. The other person is left to fill the silence, often revealing more than they planned. This is why silence is so effective. It forces the other person to deal with their own thoughts and insecurities. You, in turn, remain calm and composed while they are left to wonder what you're thinking. This strategy is also incredibly useful in business and leadership. In a high-stakes meeting, while everyone else is speaking, the person who stays quiet holds all the cards. Their silence isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. When they do speak, their words carry far more weight because they've taken the time to listen, analyze, and understand. As Warren Buffett famously does, he takes his time to listen and observe, and when he speaks, it's with purpose and precision. His silence makes people hang on his every word because they know it's well thought out and valuable. The power of silence goes beyond just influencing others. It's also a powerful tool for self-mastery. By practicing silence, you give yourself the space to think before reacting. You start to notice your own emotional triggers, and you develop the ability to pause and reflect instead of acting on impulse. This process of inner discipline is what allows you to grow stronger, wiser, and more confident in every situation. So, how can you start applying this power of silence in your life? Start by practicing restraint in everyday conversations. When you feel the urge to react, take a moment to pause. Hold your ground in silence and let the situation unfold. Over time, you'll build emotional control and develop the ability to remain composed, no matter what comes your way. Next, we'll explore the strategic use of silence in high-stakes situations. We'll look at how non-reaction can completely shift the dynamics of a conversation and how you can use silence to your advantage when the stakes are highest. Stay with us, because mastering silence is a skill that will take your confidence and influence to the next level. Now that we've explored the power of silence, let's dive into another essential aspect of mastering your inner world: the art of hiding emotions. This is one of the most powerful skills you can develop, not to suppress your feelings, but to control how and when you express them. In a world that constantly demands emotional reactions, the ability to withhold your emotions and respond with intentionality is a sign of true strength. The world today encourages us to wear our emotions on our sleeves, to react instantly to every stimulus, to express every feeling and opinion we have. But have you ever noticed how those who react impulsively, who wear their emotions outwardly, often seem to lose control? Whether it's anger, frustration, or joy, their reactions become driven by the moment with little thought of the long-term impact. On the other hand, those who can control their emotions, who know when to show restraint, are the ones who command respect and maintain true influence. Let's be clear. Hiding emotions doesn't mean pretending they don't exist. It means understanding that emotions are not directives, they are signals. Emotions tell us something about ourselves and the world around us. They're not inherently good or bad, they are simply data. But if we act on every emotion as soon as it arises, we become slaves to them. Emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, control, and express emotions in a way that's appropriate and beneficial, is what separates the emotionally strong from those who are constantly tossed around by their feelings. Think about it. In any high-pressure situation, when people react impulsively, they often say things they regret, do things they didn't mean to, and make decisions they wouldn't have made if they had taken a moment to think. You've seen it before. Someone gets angry, and their frustration is laid bare for everyone to see. They lose their composure, and suddenly the situation spirals out of control. On the other hand, someone who hides their emotions, who remains calm, composed, and centered, holds the reins of the situation. They don't need to prove anything. Their silence, their composed presence, forces others to adjust to them, not the other way around. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. Stoics don't teach us to ignore or suppress emotions. They teach us to control them. Emotions are natural. They arise from our experiences, our beliefs, our perceptions of the world. But we have the power to choose how we express them. The Stoics believed that we should not let external circumstances dictate how we feel, think, or behave. We are not helpless in the face of our emotions. Instead, we must train ourselves to respond thoughtfully, calmly, and with purpose. Consider Niccolò Machiavelli, who once wrote, "Appearance is a weapon." In the political and business arenas, the ability to control one's emotional expression can be the difference between victory and defeat. When everyone around you is panicking, losing their heads, and reacting out of fear, you, by maintaining your composure, take control of the room. Your calmness sends a message. You're not moved by the chaos. You are in charge. That's the power of emotional restraint. It shows others that you're not just reacting, but thinking, observing, and acting with intention. A prime example of this is Roger Federer, who in the 2019 Wimbledon final lost one of the most heartbreaking matches of his career. Federer didn't smash his racket or scream in frustration. He didn't lash out at the world for his defeat. Instead, he remained calm and composed, walked to the net with grace, shook his opponent's hand, and left the court with dignity. His silence in that moment wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of strength. He was showing the world that he didn't need to prove himself with outward emotion. His character, His mastery over himself spoke louder than any outburst could have. Now let's bring this idea into your own life. We all face moments when emotions are running high, whether it's a difficult conversation with a boss, an argument with a loved one, or a stressful situation at work. The natural reaction is often to express your feelings immediately, to let the world know how you feel. But what if you didn't? What if, in those moments of tension, you chose to remain silent, to pause, to allow the emotional wave to pass before responding? What would happen if, instead of reacting from a place of anger, frustration, or fear, you responded with clarity, calm, and control? In these moments, by hiding your emotions, you create space for yourself to think, to process, and to respond with intention. When you control your emotional reactions, you are not giving up your power. Instead, you're holding it. You are deciding when and how to release your emotions, choosing the right moment to express them and the right way to do so. This is the art of emotional mastery. It's about creating a gap between feeling and reaction so that when you do speak or act, it's with purpose and precision. And here's the interesting part. When you master the art of hiding emotions, you gain insight into your own mind. You start to understand the deeper layers of your feelings, your desires, and your triggers. You realize that emotions, when used wisely, can be your greatest assets. But when they're allowed to control you, they become your greatest weakness. By controlling your expressions, you gain clarity, not only in your interactions with others, but also in how you perceive yourself and the world around you. As we continue, let's explore how this emotional restraint isn't just about holding back. It's about using silence and composure to strategically influence the outcome of any situation. In the next part, we'll look at how non-reaction is not about doing nothing. It's about doing everything from a place of control. Stay tuned, because mastering this principle is what will set you apart in any high-pressure situation, allowing you to respond with unwavering confidence and emotional strength. Now that we've uncovered the power of hiding emotions, it's time to discuss one of the most pivotal aspects of mastering emotional control: non-reaction. At first glance, non-reaction may sound like doing nothing, but let me tell you, it's far from that. Non-reaction is not about being passive, it's about making a strategic choice to not react impulsively to everything that happens around you. It's about choosing how you respond, not letting life's events dictate your emotions and actions. In a world where everyone seems to react instantly, often driven by impulse or emotion, non-reaction becomes a true superpower. Think about the last time you were provoked. Whether it was a harsh comment at work, a heated argument with a loved one, or someone trying to rile you up on social media, the instinct is always to react, to defend yourself, to respond, to set the record straight. But here's the catch. When you react immediately, you're giving away your power. You're allowing your emotions to control your actions. The moment you lose that control, you give others a chance to manipulate the situation. What if, instead of reacting, you chose to pause? What if you decided to respond only when it truly mattered, in a way that was calculated, deliberate, and rooted in clarity? This is where non-reaction becomes a game changer. It's about creating space between the external stimulus and your response. This pause is where your true strength lies. In Stoic philosophy, the great thinkers knew this secret. They understood that we cannot control what happens around us, but we can control how we respond. That's where the power of non-reaction comes from. It's a deliberate choice to remain calm, to observe the situation, and to take measured action when the moment calls for it. It's not weakness, it's the strength to choose your response, rather than being swept up by the emotions of the moment. Think about martial arts, a discipline that is rooted in this very concept. In martial arts, a skilled fighter doesn't simply react to every move their opponent makes. Instead, they wait, they observe, they feel the moment. They don't force the fight, they let the opponent's energy and movements guide them. When the time is right, they strike with precision, using their opponent's momentum against them. That's the essence of non-reaction. It's not about resisting, it's about yielding in such a way that you gain control of the situation. You aren't forced into action, you act when the moment is most advantageous for you. Now, let's bring this into a real-world example. Imagine you're in a high-stakes meeting and someone throws a harsh criticism your way. The immediate impulse is to respond, to defend yourself, to correct them, to make your case. But by doing that, you're giving in to the heat of the moment. You're allowing the pressure to control you. Instead, non-reaction asks you to pause, take a deep breath, observe the situation. In this brief moment, you are choosing to stay in control. You're no longer at the mercy of someone else's words. You don't need to defend yourself in the moment because you understand that you can respond when it truly matters. And when you do, your words will carry far more weight. It's in these moments of calm, when everyone else is reacting out of emotion, that you hold the power. You give nothing away, and in doing so, you make others reveal more about themselves. Their impatience, their desire to provoke, their need for validation, all of that becomes evident to you. And because you aren't reacting, you have the advantage. You become the one who's in control, not of their actions, but of your own response. This is the strategic element of non-reaction. You are not simply doing nothing, you are choosing your response carefully. By withholding reaction, you make your next move far more deliberate. You also gain the upper hand because when you choose your response, others are left guessing. They don't know what you'll do next, and that unpredictability gives you influence. You've turned the tables on them. One powerful real-world example of non-reaction is Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time. He's famous for staying calm and composed, even in the face of market chaos. During shareholder meetings, Buffett often remains silent, letting the others speak first. When he does respond, his words are thoughtful, strategic, and impactful. He doesn't rush into reactions. He waits for the right moment, and when he speaks, everyone listens. His non-reaction in these high-pressure moments has made him one of the most respected figures in business. In contrast, those who react impulsively, whether they're trying to argue their point, defend themselves, or impress others, often lose control of the conversation. They may say something they regret, make hasty decisions, or reveal weaknesses they didn't intend to expose. This brings us to the next key point about non-reaction. It's not just about keeping your cool in conflict, it's also about making the world around you adjust to your calm. When you refuse to be provoked, others are forced to deal with their own reactions. They can't guess what you're thinking, they can't read you, and they can't manipulate you. They are left to process their own emotions while you remain centered. So, how can you start practicing non-reaction? Begin by taking moments of pause throughout your day. Whether it's a tough conversation or a challenging situation, give yourself the space to respond thoughtfully. When you feel that surge of emotion, stop, take a breath, and assess the situation. Ask yourself, what is the best response here? Is my emotional reaction serving me, or is it clouding my judgment? By practicing this habit, you train yourself to stay calm, composed, and unshaken in any situation. You become less predictable, more strategic, and far more influential. And now, as we move forward, let's explore how non-reaction isn't just about holding back. It's about doing everything from a place of control. We'll dive deeper into how you can use non-reaction, not just to avoid negative situations, but to shape the outcome of any interaction in your favor. Stay with us as we unlock this powerful tool for personal mastery and influence. Now that we've explored the power of non-reaction, let's take this idea even further. We've touched on how silence can give you control, but now we're going to explore how silence itself can be a weapon. a tool of psychological warfare that, when used strategically, can completely shift the dynamics of any interaction. This is not silence out of fear or apathy. This is silence out of strength, intention, and control. In the chaos of modern life, everyone is trying to be heard. Social media, constant notifications, and the endless demands of daily life push us into a state where noise and chatter are constant. Everyone's trying to make a point, get attention, be validated. Yet, in a world where everyone is shouting for attention, the one who remains silent stands out. The ability to remain silent when everyone else is reacting is a subtle but incredibly powerful form of control. You see, silence is not the absence of communication, it is a strategic choice. Silence forces others to speak, to reveal more than they intended. It puts the power in your hands because when you remain silent, people are left to interpret and fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. This is where the magic happens. When you control your response and choose silence, you make others uncomfortable. They can't read you, they can't guess your intentions, and that uncertainty puts them on edge. And in that space, you can maneuver, you can influence, and you can lead. In psychology, this is known as silence as a weapon. People are naturally uncomfortable with silence. It triggers a sense of anxiety, especially in conversations or confrontations. When you remain silent, it creates a gap, an opening that others must fill. And more often than not, they reveal more than they intended to. When you don't react immediately, when you don't rush in to fill the void, it forces others to expose their vulnerabilities. This is a strategic advantage because it allows you to gather information, understand the real motivations behind their words, and gain clarity. Let's think about a classic example. The poker game. In poker, the most successful players are often the ones who show no emotion. Their faces are like stone. They don't reveal their hand through nervous twitches, facial expressions, or body language. They remain silent, composed, and unreadable. Why? Because silence makes them unpredictable. It makes them impossible to figure out. If a player reacts too quickly, shows excitement over a good hand or frustration over a bad one, they give away too much information. But those who stay silent hold the power. They make their opponents guess, which leaves the players at a psychological disadvantage. This is the essence of silence as psychological warfare. When you don't react, you force others to reveal their own intentions and thoughts. Now, let's bring this idea into your personal life. Think about a conversation you've had recently. Maybe it was a disagreement, a debate, or even a negotiation. Did you find yourself reacting immediately, feeling the need to prove a point or defend your position? Did you rush to speak, to react, to express your emotions? Now think about how differently things might have played out if you'd remained silent for just a moment, long enough to pause, assess, and control your response. That brief silence would have made others uncomfortable, would have forced them to question their own words, and would have given you time to gain the upper hand. Here's the thing. When you're in a conversation or any high-pressure situation, your ability to not react is one of your strongest tools. People often expect a reaction, and when they don't get one, it throws them off. This is particularly powerful in negotiations, conflicts, or any scenario where control is key. Silence, when used strategically, can force the other person to adjust, to question themselves, and to potentially reveal their hand. You are no longer at the mercy of the conversation. You're leading it, guiding it, and influencing it with every moment you choose not to speak. Now let's look at a powerful historical example of silence used as a strategic weapon: Julius Caesar. Before crossing the Rubicon, Caesar faced a monumental decision that would change the course of history. Surrounded by uncertainty, he didn't act impulsively. He sat in silence, weighed his options, and waited for the perfect moment. This strategic use of silence, this pause, was a decisive moment. It wasn't about avoiding a decision. It was about making sure that when he spoke, when he acted, the impact would be profound. "The die is cast," he famously said, and in that one statement he reshaped the future. His silence and composure led to one of the most significant shifts in history. In today's world, many of us find ourselves in situations where we feel pressured to speak, to respond immediately, to justify our actions. But the true power lies in knowing when to remain silent. Silence is not about avoiding confrontation or withdrawing from the world. It's about choosing the right moment to speak and when to allow the world to settle in the quiet space you've created. When you remain silent, you choose to keep your power. You don't hand it over to the situation or to someone else's words. This is why silence is one of the most powerful forms of communication. It is intentional, it is calculated, it is strategic. By practicing silence, you stop giving away your energy, your emotions, and your intentions. You reserve that power for when it truly matters. Now, as we move forward, let's explore how this art of silence ties into self-mastery and influence. We've seen how silence can give you control in conversations. But what happens when you apply this principle to your daily life, to every interaction, to your mindset? In the next segment, we'll dive deeper into how silence, when practiced consistently, can transform not just how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself, and ultimately, how you influence the world around you. Stay with us as we continue this journey toward mastering silence and unlocking its full potential. Now that we've uncovered the power of silence and the art of non-reaction, let's explore a critical principle that brings it all together: the value of rare words and timely action. In a world where everyone is talking, reacting, and rushing to speak their minds, it's the person who chooses their words carefully and acts with precision that truly stands out. In today's fast-paced society, we're surrounded by noise. Social media, the news cycle, endless chatter at work or in our personal lives. Everyone seems to have something to say, and it's easy to get swept up in that tide. We feel pressured to speak up, to give our opinions, to respond quickly. But here's the truth. True power lies in choosing when to speak and when to act. The more you learn to control both your words and actions, the more influence you'll wield. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you truly listened to someone? Not just heard them, but really listened, with no immediate urge to respond or react. In those moments of deep listening, when you're fully present and not distracted by the need to fill the silence, you begin to understand something very important. Your words have more value when they are rare. Rare words, when spoken at the right moment, carry weight. They don't just add to the noise, they stand out. They hit harder, resonate deeper, and have more impact than 1,000 words said in haste. When you choose your words carefully, when you speak with intention, you convey strength and clarity. Your words become a tool not for validation but for influence. You don't speak to fill the space, you speak to make an impact. This principle, the value of rare words, is rooted deeply in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics didn't just teach us how to control our emotions, they also taught us how to control what we say. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste time on what you don't care about." How often do we waste our time, our energy, our attention on things that don't truly matter? And how often do we speak out of turn, reacting impulsively instead of pausing to reflect? The Stoics understood that our words, when used with discipline, have the power to shape our reality and our relationships. When you learn to pause, to hold back, to speak only when necessary, your words begin to carry far more weight. They don't get lost in the noise. They make people stop, listen, and think. You start to shift the dynamic in any conversation. Instead of reacting out of reflex, you respond with purpose, and that makes people take you seriously. It commands respect. This concept of rare words goes hand in hand with timely action. It's not just about knowing when to speak, it's about knowing when to act. Timing is everything. You can have all the wisdom in the world, but if you don't act when the moment is right, that wisdom remains unused, lost in the noise of daily life. Think about Warren Buffett, who we discussed earlier. He's known not just for his wealth, but for his remarkable ability to remain patient. He doesn't act on every piece of information that comes his way. Instead, he waits for the right opportunities. He's selective in when he speaks and when he acts. And that's why when he makes a move, it has a profound impact. When he speaks, people listen because his words are rare, measured, and backed by years of experience and deliberate thought. And when he acts, he does so with confidence, because he knows he's been waiting for the perfect moment. This principle is also crucial when you consider the effect of actions without words. Sometimes silence is not enough. Sometimes the right action at the right time can speak louder than anything you could ever say. Think of Julius Caesar again. Before he crossed the Rubicon, he didn't shout, he didn't make speeches. He acted, and in doing so, he shaped the future of Rome. His action was a statement, one that didn't need words to validate it. You see, timing in action is everything. You don't need to be the first to act. You don't need to make noise just for the sake of it. The key is to understand the right moment, the right opportunity, and then to strike when everything aligns. This is where true power lies, in waiting for the perfect timing, and then executing with precision and confidence. When you speak with intention and act with purpose, you become someone others respect and admire. People begin to listen more closely, not because you talk more, but because when you speak or act, it's significant. You've earned that respect, not by trying to force attention, but by being deliberate in everything you do. Let's take a moment to think about how this applies in your life. Think about your conversations, your meetings, your everyday interactions. How often do you speak because you feel the need to fill the silence? How often do you respond impulsively to something someone says, just to keep the conversation going? And now think about the moments when you've been the most effective, the moments when you've spoken or acted only when it truly mattered. When was the last time you felt the weight of your words or the impact of your actions because they were rare, calculated, and aligned with the moment? Moving forward, it's important to remember that you don't need to talk more to be heard, and you don't need to act on every opportunity that comes your way. Instead, you should focus on speaking with purpose and acting with precision. The more you practice this discipline, the more you will begin to notice a shift, not just in how others perceive you, but in how you perceive yourself. You will become more deliberate, more intentional, and more powerful. In our next segment, we'll explore how mastering the balance of rare words and timely action can elevate you in all areas of your life, whether it's in your career, relationships, or personal growth. This practice isn't just about control, it's about freedom. Freedom from the noise, freedom from the pressure to always react, and freedom to create the life you want on your own terms. Stay tuned, because what comes next will change the way you approach every challenge you face. Now that we've explored the power of rare words and the significance of timely action, let's turn our attention to one of the core pillars of true confidence, the role of silence in composure. If you want to stand out in this world, it's not about being the loudest or the quickest to react. It's about mastering silence. This is where true composure is built, and it's where you'll find your strength. In a world that constantly demands more attention, more opinions, more responses, there's something almost revolutionary about silence. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the ability to choose when, where, and how you express yourself. It is a conscious decision to remain grounded, unmoved by external pressures, and to control your internal state. Silence is the space where composure is born, and if you can master it, you can master anything. Think for a moment about the most stressful or high-pressure situations you've experienced. Whether it's a tense work meeting, a disagreement with a friend or family member, or a challenging situation where emotions are running high, how often do you find yourself reacting impulsively? We've all been there. The rush to say something, to do something, to fill the silence. But here's the truth. Those who act impulsively are often the ones who lose control. They give away their power in that moment. Silence, however, forces a different response. When you don't immediately react, you create space. You allow the situation to unfold. You let your mind gather its thoughts. Silence, in this way, becomes a strategic tool that allows you to observe, assess, and then act with clarity. It's not about avoiding the situation or withdrawing. It's about choosing to be calm in the face of chaos. Now let's take a closer look at the Stoic approach to composure. The Stoics were experts at maintaining composure, no matter the external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, wrote extensively about the importance of inner peace. In his meditations, he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This statement encapsulates the power of silence. It's the idea that no matter what happens around you, you have the ability to control your internal state. You have the power to stay calm, to stay composed, to remain silent when the world around you is screaming for a reaction. But silence is not just about staying quiet. It's about choosing not to be swayed by emotion. It's about resisting the urge to react immediately, even when everything inside you is telling you to do so. Imagine you're in a heated debate or a difficult conversation. You can feel the anger rising, the frustration building. Your instinct is to lash out, to defend yourself, to make your point. But in that moment, you choose silence. You choose to pause, to breathe, and to let the rush of emotions pass. In that silence, you regain control of yourself. You don't let the conversation dictate your emotional state. You do. This ability to remain silent in the face of pressure is what sets the most composed individuals apart. They aren't caught up in the moment. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to be the loudest in the room or the first to speak. They know that true strength lies in the ability to remain grounded, to observe, and to choose the right time to speak or act. The silence that they wield becomes a powerful tool of influence. One of the most striking examples of this power of silence comes from Roger Federer, the legendary tennis player. Federer is known not just for his incredible skill, but for his calm, composed demeanor on and off the court. In some of the most intense matches of his career, including his heartbreaking loss at Wimbledon in 2019, Federer maintained his composure, walking off the court with quiet dignity. His silence in those moments wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength. He wasn't rattled by the defeat, he wasn't rushing to justify himself or lash out in frustration. His silence became a testament to his inner strength, and it made him even more respected in the eyes of fans and opponents alike. Now think about how you can apply this same level of composure to your own life. Every day we're presented with moments where our emotions are triggered, whether it's at work, with friends, or in a personal challenge. In these moments, you can choose silence. You can choose to hold your ground, to pause, to create the space needed to regain control of yourself. By doing this, you don't let external events dictate your state of mind. You reclaim your inner peace, and in doing so, you become more powerful. This is why silence is so essential to composure. It is the space where clarity is born. It allows you to respond rather than react, and it gives you the power to choose your actions with intention rather than being driven by impulse or emotion. The more you practice this, the more you will notice a shift in how you handle pressure. You will become more measured in your responses, more thoughtful in your actions, and more confident in your ability to remain calm and composed, no matter what life throws at you. As we move forward, let's dive into how this principle of silence can be applied to even the most challenging situations. How can silence, when used strategically, help you in negotiations, high-pressure environments, and conflict resolution? Stay tuned, because mastering this art will take your composure and your life to the next level. As we come to the end of this journey into mastering the power of silence, non-reaction, and strategic composure, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on what we've uncovered together. Every principle we've discussed, from the value of silence as psychological warfare to the deliberate use of rare words and timely actions, isn't just about philosophy. It's a way of living. It's about taking control of your inner world so that nothing on the outside can shake you. Silence, as we've learned, is not emptiness. It is the space where strength is cultivated. It's the power to remain calm when everyone else is reacting. It's the ability to choose your response rather than being controlled by external circumstances. And when you combine silence with non-reaction, what you get is a person who is not easily swayed, a person who has mastered themselves. This is where true confidence begins. But let's be clear about something. This level of composure doesn't come naturally. It requires practice. It requires discipline. The truly confident are not those who react immediately to every provocation, but those who choose their words and actions with purpose. They know when to stay silent and when to speak. They understand that doing nothing in the right moment is often more powerful than doing something impulsively. Now let's talk about you. Where do you see this playing out in your life? Whether you're dealing with a stressful situation at work, a challenging conversation with a friend, or a conflict at home, these principles of silence and non-reaction can serve as tools to help you stay calm, composed, and in control. But here's the catch: you won't master them overnight. It takes consistent effort to stop reacting impulsively and to start responding with intention. And I promise you, the more you practice this, the more you will begin to notice a shift in your own life. You will feel more powerful, more grounded, and more confident in every situation you face. What I want you to take away from this video is this: true power comes from the ability to remain composed in the face of chaos. When everyone else is reacting, when they're overwhelmed by emotion, you will be the one who remains calm, in control, and strategic. This is the essence of inner strength. It's not about being passive, it's about choosing to be active in your response. And here's the best part. Once you start to understand and apply this power, you will begin to notice something incredible. Your presence will change. You will stop being a reaction to everything happening around you, and you'll begin to shape the world according to your own terms. People will start to see you differently, not as someone who needs to prove their worth, but as someone who has already mastered themselves. You won't need to shout to be heard, because the weight of your presence will do the talking for you. Now, if you're ready to embrace this shift, here's what I want you to do. Start small. Look for the opportunities in your life where you can choose silence over reaction. In meetings, in conversations, in heated moments, pause. Let that silence be the space where your strength grows. Don't feel the pressure to always speak or to always act. Let others fill in the gaps. Observe. Listen. And when you do choose to speak, let your words carry weight. And remember, this journey doesn't stop here. This is just the beginning. So, if you found value in this video, if you're ready to build your inner strength, and if you're committed to mastering the art of silence, don't stop now. Subscribe to the channel for more content on how to build unshakable confidence, develop self-mastery, and live a life where you control your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Hit that like button if you felt inspired by today's lesson, and share this video with someone who could benefit from learning the power of silence and non-reaction. But most importantly, leave a comment below. Let me know. When was the last time you chose silence over reaction? How did it change the situation? Let's start a conversation about how we can all build the confidence that comes from inner strength, not outer noise. Thank you for watching. Remember, confidence doesn't come from speaking more, it comes from speaking less and doing more. Stay calm, stay composed, and I'll see you in the next video.